Hello, and welcome to the lovely Angela Harvey from Supporting Potential. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your of knowledge. I know that you help businesses in multifaceted areas of the NDIS world, and I love that. So, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I love any opportunity to talk about all things NDIS.
Yeah, amazing. So I would love for you to maybe just share a bit about your background and how you moved into the NDIS space or how long you've been in it.
So, look, my story goes back probably about 15 years ago, and I fell into disability support. I chased a job title, and I must admit, my first job, I went, oh, I don't know what I've gotten myself into here. I went to a day program for really complex support needs and panicked. And luckily, I had a really good boss that went, no, just keep going, and eventually you'll stop seeing disability and you'll just see people. And it happened really quickly, and all of a sudden I found a passion. I wasn't just chasing job titles anymore. So yeah, I was part of the transition over to the NDIS, so in New South Wales, transitioning our block funding over to the individualized plans and trying to see how we can support people to do that. I then transitioned over to the Quality and Safeguards Commission and all of the fun that entails. And I think I'd been working with lots of different types of providers for the first 10 years of the scheme. And what really struck me was that we hadn't really got to that point of people with disability, particularly the complex disabilities, having choice and control. We all talk about it and we put our mantras up there on the wall, but when it actually comes down to real practice on the ground, it still looks an awful lot like it did 10, 15 years ago. And I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting change from within the organization. So I thought, you know what, if I step outside, I might be able to find some alignment with like-minded people and be able to help change from that aspect.
yeah, I love that. And I love what your employer said to you about soon you will see them as people and you won't see their disability. That's absolute gold. I haven't heard that before, but it's just absolute, yeah, speaks
Oh, it was,
volumes.
yeah. And I guess it's my privilege and my sheltered background, but I just never really had that type of engagement before. And it took me by surprise. And I think I was really lucky that she sort of believed that I was the right type of person for this, because she encouraged me to persevere. And the people that I've met along the way and what I've managed to do in my career, I really thank her for that opportunity.
Yeah, wonderful. So you've mentioned a few things there, like you've obviously got the quality background as well. And that's what I love too, that you can look at things from varying perspectives as opposed to just from, yeah, one side of things. So I love that. Would you describe yourself as a leader of leaders? So what does that mean to you? And how can NDIS business owners develop strong leadership skills?
A leader of leaders. I would like to hope so, but I think the only person that can really answer that is people that want to follow me. How do NDIS leaders become leaders of leaders? I think a big part of it is really looking inwards at ourselves and critically analyzing what do we stand for, what are our strengths, and where do we maybe need to get some other people around us to help us. Particularly when you're at the top of your game, you're the CEO, you feel like that whole weight's on your shoulders to make sure everything's okay. And I think the real trick of leadership in this space is that you can't do everything. You can only do what your skill sets are. And then it's your responsibility as a leader to build the team around you to compensate for where maybe you don't have the strengths or the stuff that you can do, but you don't love it and your heart's not in it and it takes you 7 times as long. Get somebody else to do it. Focus on the stuff that's made you great. And make sure you take your team on that journey too, because there's a level of vulnerability in saying, you know what, I know I'm not perfect, that we don't see often in our space.
Mm.
And I think that's the real true human side of what it is that we do. We're working with vulnerable people, we're working with people that are learning new things every day and how to change their approaches to life. If we can't stop and have a moment and go, yeah, I'm still learning too, and I want to be better tomorrow. What are we doing here?
Exactly. We can never stop learning, can we? And we're never perfect. We're never done. We can never know it all. I totally agree 100%. We need to have a support team around us who, because we can't do it all. Like it's just things will not run well if we try to do it all.
100%. And you break, the team breaks, and it's just not worth it. It's
Yeah.
totally not worth it.
Yeah. So mentioning the breaking there. So obviously managing NDIS teams, it comes with challenges being high staff turnover and burnout, compliance pressures. What's your advice for retaining and engaging a strong team?
I wholeheartedly believe, and I don't want to put pressure on this layer of the organization, but I think it's our frontline managers can either make or break our long-term staffing problems. It's that old saying, people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. And what I've seen in my time in the disability sector is that we tend to promote from within. We go, hey, you're a really great support worker. You work really well with people with disabilities. So we're now going to make you a leader, and you've got to do this administrative stuff, and you've got to lead people. And it's generally a step out of their comfort zone. And it's not that it's something that those individuals can't do, but a lot of the time we don't actually invest in teaching them what it means to be a leader. We give them the paperwork and we give them the title, and then we say, off you go. We've actually had some phenomenal success recently with an organization who was having their worst retention that they've had in their sort of 5 years of being. Their turnover rates were through the roof, and we launched our RISE program, which is a 4-month intensive development for frontline leaders. So basically, those people that either have moved into a leadership position and they're not quite leaders yet, or those people that you see and you go, damn, you've got potential and we want to make sure you're ready when we need you. And basically, we managed to reduce their turnover rate by 75% in 4 months.
Wow.
And it just, the staff, you can see that they're thinking differently. And the commentary that you get at the end of the day is, oh, I've been in the industry for 15 years and nobody's ever spoken to me like this before. And it is just trying to really articulate some of the broader skill sets of leadership that the big consultancy orgs and banks and all of those things do, but then trying to just boil it down to say, how does that apply here in our setting? And what's the difference between being a good leader to your support workers that you're supporting versus trying to actually encourage and engage a person with complex disabilities to try something new and to get out of their comfort zone? It's the same skill.
Yeah, so true. Very true. Haven't looked at it like that before.
No, and I don't think people necessarily do. I think we throw the title of leader and it throws people off.
Mm.
When you actually go, no, as a support worker, particularly those working with the psychosocial and the intellectual disabilities more so than the people providing care and daily living supports, your role is to teach people new tasks. It is to support them to learn and adapt and do something that they couldn't do yesterday. And if you can do that with a person with an intellectual disability and make them feel good in that process, you're just applying the same thing to your staff because your staff want to learn. I'm a wholehearted believer that nobody actually turns up to work going, yeah, I don't want to do a good job today. I think we allow that to happen.
Yeah, especially in this industry, you would hope and you would think that, yeah, most people are not, yeah, turning up to work and going, okay, let's do a terrible job today because it's just not the place to be doing it.
No, not when people, like literally people's lives can be depending on you
At
day in
risk.
and day out. And we need to really appreciate the gravity of that and that somebody has actually trusted you in that position. So you owe it to them to do a good job.
Yeah. And you've touched on it there. You've talked about the leadership training. How important do you think it is for other areas of training and professional development and even personal development for your overall team? So not just your leaders.
I think you all need to be learning together. It's really important for me that if I'm learning something new, even if my team aren't learning it in the same depth or level as what I am, they're still learning about the same topic so that we're all actually moving it as a cohesive unit. I see what happens a lot of the time in disability. And look, it is because we don't have a huge sort of overhead that we can allocate to training. But we will see a really great training program, or we'll see a conference and we'll say, okay, here's our great performer at the moment. Off you go, come back and report. And it just gets lost because we don't have that collective movement forward, and we don't have other people that understand what it is that they've learned and what they're trying to achieve with that new knowledge. So I think it is really important to build a structure where your team is collectively moving together, but you're able to pick people up along the way. And we just don't do that well. I also think that we have a real tendency in disability to try and focus on, I'm going to call it evidence-based practice, but realistically, the evidence base is very little. Yes, we've got active support, we've got person-centered support, we've got trauma-informed support, we've got all these different models. But I think if we really break it down and once again, see people as people, what do people need to have a great life, and what is my role in supporting that? And I think there's some really fundamental things there that we can learn to teach people as well. We're running a program at the moment in our online learning space for patience. What does it actually mean to be patient? How can you identify whether you actually are or not? Because that's going to be the big difference if the person you're supporting is maybe pushing your buttons, and we know that it happens. But if you can have that breath and come back patient with a smile on your face, that's the difference between a good day and a bad day.
Yeah, very true. And I guess what would you say? I guess there's challenges around, you've talked about learning together, and that 100% makes sense to me. I guess the challenges from providers or employers is especially ones who are providing 24/7 care, trying to get everybody together as a team to do that learning together, or whether it be in a physical pace or as in people not on shift, not on roster, to be able to attend training and things like that. How do you suggest, or do you have any suggestions around managing that?
I think part of that is using technology to our advantage, but it's also trying to make sure the technology fits your needs. So all of our online learning courses you can do in 15 minutes or less. So the idea is that even if you are on a 24/7 shift, there are going to be those moments within that shift where everybody's gone to bed for the night, or they're just having their quiet time. They don't want you to engage. They've told you to leave them alone. Hey, that's a great opportunity to go on to learn a new skill. We've also tried to gamify it so it actually becomes fun and that there's a challenge to it. So it's not just, oh, I've got to go on and do another online learning course. And I think the real key difference that I'm super proud of within our program is that it's actually been designed by people that receive the services. So people that are living in SIL have actively designed these programs to say, this is what I need from my team. This is what I want you to know. I also think that there's a level of flipping some of the things that we currently do and some of the things that we're required to do for compliance reasons, but actually looking at how can we make a dual approach of it. For example, our support plan is the prime example. And if we take a step back, yes, the Commission says as a registered provider, you must have a document that highlights the person's likes, dislikes, support needs, strengths, and what they want in the person providing their supports. Now, I support a few organisations across the board of Australia, and I guarantee every single one of them has a 2 to 3 page document with the heading strengths, and you write it in, and it gets sucked into some sort of online platform, depending on what the organisation uses, and it never gets looked at again. And if we're thinking about that from the lens of that actually should be the Bible, that should be the thing that's really directing how that person receives supports day in and day out. What are their goals? How are we helping them to meet those goals? One of the things that I've been doing with a provider is we've actually flipped that, and we've made it a multimedia tools. So we've built the support plan into a PowerPoint, which can then be sucked into their online learning system. And it does all of those things all at once. So once again, it's still only a 5 to 10 minute online learning program. We've been able to develop questions at the back end of it to actually make sure that they understand what do I actually need to do if I'm going in and supporting Angela tomorrow? What does that look like for her? And we've even had a few participants where we've asked them, hey, do you want to give a message to the people that are going to be supporting you? Do you want to tell them directly what it is you want on a daily basis? And we've had some great engagements with people where you make it informal, you make it fun, you sit down with your mobile phone and say, all right, talk to your support workers, tell them whatever it is you want. And they love it. And I think that's just the slightest shift to actually starting to put that person back into control. Not to mention it does allow you to meet your compliance requirements. So that's a big tick in the box, but it also gives you the training capability and is probably going to result in a far better behavior change, which essentially is what we're trying to do in training. And I think sometimes we just do training for training's sake, whereas organizations really need to stop. What is it that I need my people to know? What is it that I need them to then do? And how am I going to measure whether it's been successful or not?
Let's pause for a moment to talk about resources that can help you scale your NDIS business. Have you downloaded my free NDIS Business Growth Blueprint yet? It's a step-by-step guide designed to help you simplify compliance, streamline your operations, and grow your business with confidence. And if you're looking for more personalized support, my Bestie in Business membership is exactly what you need. You'll get group coaching, virtual co-working sessions, and tailored strategies to help you thrive in the NDIS space. You can find the links to both the freebie and the membership in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode of NDIS Business Breakthrough with Vanessa Norman. I love that. And I love the idea of it being 15 minutes or shorter, as opposed, I think that in itself is a total mind shift, because it can be people, oh, I don't want to do that training. It goes for an hour. I've got to sit here for an hour or two and listen to this thing. And oh, it's so boring and that kind of thing. Whereas straight to the point, short snippet, 15-minute engaging, asking questions at the end to make sure they understand it. That's powerful.
Yeah, and it gets people wanting to come back. So obviously, like, you can't learn how to be a disability support worker in 15 minutes. That's
No.
But if you're giving them enough of an engaging moment, they want to keep doing more. They want to keep coming in and seeing what else you have on offer. And look, that strategy purely came about because I was an operations manager and I had to roster people on to do 3 hours of online learning. And A, we broke award rules left and center. B, trying to do it was just a absolute nightmare. And so this way, okay, you know what? You want to be the employer that pays people to do training because you want to invest in your services. This is a really easy way to do it. You just throw it on the end of a shift where you're not going to breach an award rule and off you go.
Yeah, that's a very good workaround, and totally that. I know I talk to some providers even regarding like maybe having team meetings and things like that. Oh, but then do I have to pay them? Yeah, you do. But the return on investment from that simple couple of hours or even hour short team meeting can be massive.
But I think that's where we fall down as an industry, is that we actually stop having that business lens on what that return on investment is.
Mm.
And I think that particularly if you're looking in your head office, and I used to love doing this as a game. Every time I had to go to a meeting, I'd sit down and I'd go, okay, that person's hourly salary is roughly that. So this meeting's costing us $2,500. What are we getting for that $2,500? And if you can't clearly identify what that is actually getting you, you probably shouldn't be having the meeting. So once again, it's rewinding it a little bit and saying, yes, I want my team to be able to work together and actually be a collective team instead of 10 or 12 different people that are ships in the night. And how do I actually get them to do that? What is it that they need to know? And what does that then look like back in the SIL house or the day program or whatever it is you're doing? Because unless you can actually quantify it, you are probably just going to be putting money down the toilet.
Do you find value though in the team camaraderie and the team building side of it though?
Once again, I think if it's done correctly, yes. But I don't necessarily think we use team meetings in that fashion to
Yeah.
build camaraderie. And I think a big part of it is actually trying to build that empathy within your team that, oh, they've had a really bad day, or I read that incident report and wow, that must have been hard for you. Are you okay? It's trying to encourage those types of lower level behaviors that are actually what leads to really good teams. And yes, you definitely need to have people together in different settings. And I think trying to change things up and put it in a different environment, actually giving them the floor and say, okay, one of the things that I've found really powerful is when you get a group of your senior leaders to attend that team meeting and say, ask us anything. We may not know the answer, and that's not a bad thing, but you need to tell us how we make this better for you on a daily basis. And look, that is, I've done it. It is uncomfortable because you've got no idea what's going to get thrown at you, but it actually buys you a lot of street cred.
Yeah, definitely. It's that two-way communication and open transparency, isn't it?
And that's just it. As leaders, we can often be too far removed and
Mm.
we tend to only see the bad in a lot of cases. We see the nasty incident reports. We get the HR files across our desk when someone's done something stupid. It's not, we don't really get to see the good. And so I think we've got to put ourselves more in that position because we don't actually encourage our staff to tell us either. Every organisation that I've worked with views incident reports as a bad thing. Oh, bad thing happened, do an incident report. No, an incident report should be anything out of the usual, anything
Mm.
that took you by surprise. That could actually be that the person achieved a goal, that they did something that they'd never done before. And we don't record those things.
Yeah,
And I think, A, by not recording it, we're losing the learning. But B, we're also losing that opportunity to celebrate and to say, yeah, you know what? Support work is hard. What you do every day is hard. But this was a moment. This was a really amazing thing that you managed to achieve. Don't forget about it.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's huge. And they can be only small. They might be small little wins, but they're wins nonetheless.
And look, if you talk to any business leader, they'll say it's the one percenters. It is those small wins repeated as what makes either a great company or a company that's not here tomorrow. And nobody goes and says, hey, I'm going to lose 20 kilos and they do it tomorrow. They lose 500 grams, then they lose a kilo. And then that's how you get momentum. And I think that's where we need to shift our thinking maybe a little bit with how we're providing support.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. So you have worked across large scale government and not for profit businesses
Yes.
and into the NDIS. What are the most important lessons that small to medium providers could take from these experiences that you've had in that larger setting?
I think the real advantage that small to medium providers have is that they can actually pivot really quickly. So they can change the way they do things and they can re-establish their foundations in a much more efficient way than, say, your Life Without Barriers or your Endeavour Foundations. Those big ships are very hard to move. So I think once again, it's the challenge for small to medium enterprises is that as the leader, you're going to get sucked into those day-to-day problems and you're going to stop leading and you're going to be doing. And that's a really hard challenge to pull yourself away from.
Mm.
But I think if you can and you stop to think about, okay, what are my pain points in this business? And what are the things that keep causing issues? How do I do it differently? I think you'll actually see really big rewards. And it is about stopping and saying, okay, yes, everybody keeps talking about the fact that I need to have a CRM. I'll go out there and I'll look around and I'll see what's there and I'll buy a product, and I don't really know how to do project management or change management. So I'll just whack it on in and hope for the best. And then it doesn't do what I need it to do. And I end up spending twice as much time to do manual workarounds as the fact that I should be spending half as much time, and we don't actually look at what we've already got. I guarantee you most organizations probably are using either a Google system or Microsoft. There's so much already built in there that if you're a small to medium enterprise, why do you need a $50,000 a year CRM?
Mm.
And I think we just
Yeah.
fall into the trap of this is what others around us are doing. And I would really strongly encourage leaders of those businesses to say, look, if you try and copy the likes of the Endeavours and the Life Without Barriers, you're not going to win. It won't work. They've
No.
got too much behind them and too much legacy that you just can't keep up. But if you reestablish the game to make it work for you, who knows what you can achieve.
Yeah, so true. You need to be looking at your own and what you can implement. And instead of maybe copying exactly like you say, the big ship that's a lot bigger and slower to move, come in and be the quick moving speedboat.
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah, no. Thank you so much, Angela, for joining today. I would love for you to share a bit more information around. You've mentioned a couple of programs today, working with leaders, working with team, that your organization does in the NDIS world.
Okay, so we see ourselves as being the partner for the executive team. So a lot of organizations cannot afford to have quality and safeguarding and HR senior experience. And as I said before, it is really lonely at the top. And sometimes you do need that partner that you can say, oh, this incident's just come through. What do we do? How do we interrogate it? And so we offer a program where we align with business leaders. You essentially are getting yourself a quality and safeguarding executive, but we're not on your payroll. We can come to your meetings. We can develop the plans. We can make sure that everybody's across the plans. We report back to make sure that is still going. So you're using your internal resources more effectively. And then we can create a framework for actually making sure that you are providing quality and safeguarding to the people that you're supporting. So that's probably our higher level package. One of the things that I'm really proud about is I'm a trained auditor and I hate it. It's just so dry and boring, really. And you can't help people. You just have to say, no, you got it wrong.
Yeah.
So we've actually designed an internal audit program where, once again, it's a person who lives in SIL. So Robbie Dennis works for me and he lives in a SIL environment. He has struggled with the system for the last 8 years because he does want to be more independent. And his big message is people need to listen. We only pay attention to the squeaky wheel. I need to know that I'm getting supported, but I also need to know that I'm doing so in a way that suits my life. And so we go and we do these internal audits together. And having him go in and speak to other people, particularly receiving SIL services, and watching those interactions, because he'll always start and go, oh, yeah, do you like it here? Yeah, it's good. Okay, tell me why it's good. And a lot of the time they can't. And so Robbie's got this really nice way of talking to people and going, look, I'm just like you, I get it. And now you can start to ask for more, and you should be asking for more. And so I think it just brings a totally different lens to an internal audit. Yes, we can go in, we can make sure that you've got the right paperwork, but if the service on the ground that the person with a disability is receiving isn't quality, does it really matter if you've got all the documentation sitting behind you?
So true.
I would much rather any day of the week work with an organization that you can see genuinely care and they are trying to provide really good quality support, and their documentation in the back end's a mess. Because at least they're the ones that their heart's in the right places.
Yeah.
And you can make the documentation work, but you can't necessarily teach people how to care.
Yeah. I see on your website you have quite a number of disability advocates that are part of your team. And like you say, it's a totally different lens, a totally different way of looking at it. And that is gold. That is powerful.
And look, I think that was something that was really important for me when I was establishing this business, in that both myself and my business partner, James, we're white, middle class background. We do have a lot of privilege. And we work with mainstream organizations as well to try and improve the experience of people with a disability. And my big audacious goal is that eventually our two streams will meet and that we can provide employment opportunities to people that have otherwise not had them, with our partners that are trying to do something a little bit different. And I had this moment where we were talking to a provider about their disability inclusion plan, and I thought, I can't sit in front of a room full of people and say, hey, you need to hire people with a disability if I'm not going to do it myself.
Mm.
And look, it hasn't been easy, and I have learnt so much. But I've been really lucky with the people that I've hired that have actually trusted me to be honest and to give me that feedback that says, this kind of isn't working for me. Can we try something else?
Mm. Oh, look, and that speaks volumes in itself that you obviously take that on board and do something with it. It's not just them voicing it and nothing's done. And that's what makes the big difference.
And that's right. Once again, I'm a firm believer that everybody wants to do something good. They want to make their day worthwhile. And they just need to be given the opportunity to do that in a way that suits their strengths. So if we're thinking, circling right back to ourselves as leaders, what are our strengths? How do we create an environment where we get to show them on a regular basis? How do we create an environment where we can downplay our weaknesses and that they don't stick out like sore thumbs? Let's do that at the other end too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for joining me today. Where can people contact you?
So people can contact us through our website, www.supportingpotential.com.au, or call me directly on 0409 799 381.
Amazing. We will pop that in the show notes as well. So if anybody didn't catch that.
Thank you so much for having me this afternoon, Vanessa. I've really enjoyed my time talking to you.
No, thank you so much for sharing your absolute wealth of knowledge. I love it.
Look, every day, if we just get a little bit better, then it's a good day.